Chile is a country like no other. Long, narrow, and stretching from the world's driest desert in the north to icy fjords and windswept islands in the south. And along this vast spine of land, the birds are just as extraordinary as the landscapes they call home. Here, the skies are ruled by the Andean Condor, its 10-foot wingspan casting shadows over the mountains. Along the Pacific coast, the Inca Tern flaunts a white mustache against slate-gray feathers, while the seaside cinclodes survives on the edge of crashing waves. In the dense forests of Patagonia, the giant Magellanic woodpecker hammers like a drum, and high in the Andes, the rare Diademed Sandpiper-Plover tiptoes through icy streams like a jewel set against stone. Chile is also home to the bizarre and the beautiful, like the comical Moustached Turca, the secretive Crag Chilia, and the fiery Juan Fernández Firecrown, a hummingbird found nowhere else on Earth. These are not ordinary birds. They are survivors of deserts, cliffs, and stormy seas. Creatures so strange and so wonderful that you might not believe they exist. So join me as we journey through Chile to meet 15 of its strangest feathered wonders. High in Chile's Andes, where snow crowns the peaks and the wind cuts thin and cold, a shadow circles overhead, broad, steady, silent. Then the shape resolves, a bird so vast that the mountains themselves seem small beside it. The Andean Condor, this is one of the largest flying birds in the world. Its wings stretch nearly 10 feet from tip to tip, wider than most people are tall. Dressed in black, with a ruff of white feathers around its neck and flashes of white across its wings, it looks regal, almost priestly as it glides over cliffs. Males wear a fleshy crest on their heads, giving them a stern, ancient profile, like figures carved in stone. Here's a fact that amazes scientists. Condors can soar for hours without once flapping their wings. By riding rising currents of warm air, they cover vast distances while conserving energy. One study tracked a condor gliding over 100 miles on nothing but air, an almost impossible feat of endurance. In Chilean culture, the condor is more than a bird. It is a national symbol, appearing on the country's coat of arms. For indigenous peoples of the Andes, it was sacred, a messenger between the earth below and the heavens above. To see a condor circle overhead was to glimpse the presence of the divine. Yet this giant faces fragile times. Condors reproduce slowly, just one chick every other year. Habitat loss and poisoning have reduced their numbers, making conservation essential. Still, in the wild skies of Chile, they remain kings of the air. Now let me ask you, have you ever looked up and seen something so immense, so commanding, that you felt both humbled and uplifted all at once? That's the Andean Condor. So the next time you picture Chile's high mountains, imagine this silhouette circling effortlessly on the wind, a bird too strange, too enduring, and too magnificent to be real. In Chile's high Andes, above the tree line where air thins and icy streams cut through tundra meadows, you might spot a bird no bigger than your hand. Small, quiet, and rare, it moves delicately among pebbles, dipping its bill into the frigid water. The Diademed Sandpiper-Plover. Its name alone sounds like a contradiction, part sandpiper, part plover, and its appearance is just as unusual. Its plumage is a soft mosaic of browns and grays, perfectly camouflaged against rocks and moss. But what catches the eye is its crown, a fine white line above the eyes like a delicate diadem, a tiny crown of feathers fit for royalty. Here's a fun fact. Unlike most shorebirds that feed on coastlines, this species lives thousands of feet above sea level, foraging along cold alpine streams. Its long bill probes the mud for insect larvae, making a living in a place where few creatures can survive. The Diademed Sandpiper-Plover is also a mystery. It is scarce, hard to find, and often overlooked. Even seasoned bird watchers can spend years without seeing one. In Chile, spotting it is considered a prize, a jewel of the Andes revealed only to the patient and lucky. Culturally, birds like this embody the spirit of the mountains, small, resilient, and perfectly adapted to harsh conditions. They remind us that survival does not always belong to the biggest or the loudest, but sometimes to the most unassuming. Yet fragility shadows its beauty. Climate change threatens the alpine wetlands where it breeds, As glaciers retreat and water sources dry, the bird's future becomes uncertain. Protecting it means protecting an entire ecosystem balanced on the edge of survival. Now let me ask you, have you ever discovered something so small, so easily missed, yet so exquisite that it felt like stumbling upon a hidden treasure? That's the Diademed Sandpiper-Plover. So the next time you picture Chile's mountains, don't just look to the skies for condors. Look down to the streams, where a tiny bird crowned with a diadem walks quietly among the stones. Along Chile's rugged Pacific coast, where cold Humboldt currents crash against black cliffs, the air is alive with the cries of seabirds. Among the gulls and pelicans, one stands out immediately, not for size or color, but for a peculiar flourish of style, the Inca Tern. At first glance, it looks sleek and simple. Slate gray feathers cover its body, wings tipped in white, and a bright red bill and legs flash against the dark sea. But then you notice the face, long, curling white mustaches sweeping back from each corner of the beak. The effect is startling, like a dapper gentleman from another age, dressed for a gala at the edge of the world. Here's a fun fact. Those mustaches aren't just decoration. They are specialized feathers, and scientists believe they serve as signals of health and fitness. The fuller and longer the mustache, the more attractive the bird is to potential mates. In the world of the Inca Tern, style truly is survival. They nest in colonies along rocky cliffs, where their sharp cries echo with the sound of the surf. Unlike gulls that scavenge, Inca Terns are skilled hunters, diving into waves for anchovies and other small fish. Their flight is agile, darting and twisting above the breakers with precision. For Chileans, this bird carries echoes of history. Its name honors the ancient Inca civilization, whose empire once stretched across these coasts. To see an Inca Tern balancing on the wind is to glimpse both natural beauty and cultural memory entwined. Though not endangered, Inca Terns rely heavily on healthy fisheries. Overfishing threatens their food supply, and shifts in ocean currents can disrupt entire colonies. Protecting them means protecting the sea itself. Now let me ask you, have you ever met someone whose style alone made them unforgettable? That's the Inca Tern. Proof that even in the wild, a good mustache never goes out of fashion. So the next time you picture Chile's coasts, imagine flocks of gray seabirds adorned with bright red bills and white mustaches. Strange, elegant, and too charming to be real. In the dry shrublands of central Chile, where thorny bushes scatter across rolling hills, a song breaks the silence. Clear, varied, and playful, it rises, falls, and shifts again, as if several birds were singing at once. Then from the top of a low thorn bush, the singer appears, the Chilean mockingbird. At first sight, it may seem modest. Its plumage is a blend of grays and browns, perfectly camouflaged against dusty landscapes. A pale eyebrow line arches gracefully across the face, and its long tail flicks with restless energy. But it is the voice, not the feathers, that defines this bird. Here's a fun fact. The Chilean mockingbird is a gifted mimic. It can weave together the songs of other birds, the calls of insects, and even the sounds of human activity into its own performance. Each tune is slightly reshaped, making its song a living patchwork of the environment. Locals often say that if the land could sing, it would sound like this bird. Beyond mimicry, the mockingbird is clever and bold. It hops confidently near villages and vineyards, often scavenging fallen fruit. Farmers know it as both a companion and a trickster, sometimes helpful in eating insects, sometimes too fond of grapes for its own good. In Chilean culture, the mockingbird's voice carries symbolic weight. A bird that sings with many tongues becomes a symbol of communication, adaptability, and resilience. Poets have compared its song to the spirit of Chile itself, diverse, surprising, and never silent. Yet the bird's survival still depends on fragile ecosystems. Shrublands and dry forests, often cleared for agriculture, are the places where its voice is loudest. Protecting them means ensuring that future generations hear its songs. Now let me ask you, have you ever listened to someone tell a story so well, borrowing bits and pieces from everywhere, that the performance became uniquely theirs? That's the Chilean mockingbird. So the next time you wander Chile's hills, Pause when you hear an unexpected melody. Chances are it's this gray-brown bird, singing the voice of the land itself. On the rocky hillsides of central Chile, a flash of rufous brown hops into view. The bird is plump, long-tailed, and spends more time on the ground than in the air. As it turns its head, you notice the most striking feature: two white stripes curving down from the beak like elegant moustaches, the moustached Turca. This bird belongs to a small family found only in South America, and it has adapted perfectly to life on the ground. Its strong legs and large feet help it scramble up slopes and dig through soil for insects, worms, and seeds. Instead of flying gracefully, it prefers to dash across rocks or make short, clumsy hops. It is, in every sense, a bird that has traded elegance for persistence. Here's a fun fact. The moustached Turca is a master of voice. Its call is loud and repetitive, echoing across valleys like a mocking laugh. Birdwatchers often hear it long before they see it, and when one sings, neighbors quickly join in, creating a chorus that fills the hillside with rhythm. Its mustache feathers give it a comic charm, and locals have long noticed this. In Chilean folklore, the Turca is sometimes portrayed as a quirky trickster, noisy and bold. Farmers encounter it often near villages, scratching at the ground, unconcerned by human presence. Despite its clumsy appearance, it plays an important ecological role. By turning over soil and eating insects, it helps control pests and keeps the ecosystem balanced. In this way, the bird's noisy antics mask a quieter contribution to the land. For visitors, the moustached Turca is unforgettable. Not because it is rare, it is fairly common in central Chile, but because it is such a personality. You can't mistake that mustache, that voice, or that determined little run across the rocks. Now let me ask you, have you ever met someone who wasn't graceful, wasn't polished, but who lit up the room with sheer character? That's the moustached Turca. So the next time you wander Chile's hillsides, listen for a bold call and watch the ground. Chances are this moustached comedian is already watching you. In Chile's central mountains, where cliffs rise steep and the wind whistles through rocky canyons, a small, inconspicuous bird clings to the stone. Its colors are plain, soft browns and grays that blend almost perfectly with the rocks. Blink once and you'll miss it. The Crag Chilia. Though unremarkable at first glance, this bird is a true specialist. Its long, slightly curved bill probes crevices for insects and spiders, while its stiff tail braces against vertical stone, an adaptation that lets it move like a woodpecker across bare rock. Watching one climb a cliff is like watching a shadow come to life, darting quickly from crack to crack. Here's a fun fact. Unlike many small birds, the Crag Chilia rarely ventures into trees or open fields. It is tied to rocky habitats, cliffs, gorges, boulder fields, where it builds bulky nests of sticks tucked into ledges and caves. Entire generations live within sight of the same walls, making their lives a quiet testament to persistence in a harsh landscape. Because it is so well camouflaged, few people ever notice it. Even seasoned birders in Chile call it a phantom of the cliffs. Its call is a thin, high-pitched whistle, echoing faintly off the stone, as if the rocks themselves were singing. Culturally, birds like the Crag Chilia embody resilience. They do not dazzle with color or song, but survive where few others can. For people living in the Andes, they serve as quiet reminders that beauty sometimes hides in persistence, not display. And yet their limited range makes them vulnerable. Habitat loss from mining or construction threatens their strongholds. Protecting the cliffs means protecting this understated piece of Chile's natural heritage. Now let me ask you, have you ever discovered something small and ordinary at first sight, only to realize it carried a quiet brilliance when you look closer? That's the Crag Chilia. So the next time you pass through Chile's rugged canyons, pause and look at the rocks. Somewhere in the shadows, a little bird is climbing the cliffs, strange and steadfast, too easy to miss, but too remarkable to ignore. On Chile's rocky Pacific shoreline, waves pound endlessly against dark cliffs. Spray hangs in the air, salt coats every stone, and few creatures dare to live so close to the sea's fury. Yet here, hopping nimbly between wet rocks, is a bird that has made this harsh edge its home. the seaside cinclodes. Dressed in earthy browns and grays, it doesn't dazzle with color. Its feathers are streaked and mottled, blending into the stones as if carved from the coast itself. But its life is extraordinary. While most songbirds prefer forests or fields, this one forages in tidal pools, poking its bill into seaweed, crevices, and foam for tiny crabs, insects, and marine worms. Here's a fun fact. The seaside cinclodes is the only passerine songbird known to live its entire life in the salt-sprayed zone of crashing surf. It doesn't just visit the shore, it belongs here. Watching one scurry across the rocks as waves explode behind it is like seeing resilience in motion. They build nests in rocky holes and crevices, sometimes so close to the tide line that spray dampens their entrance. To survive here, they must time their foraging carefully, dashing in when the waves recede and retreating just before the next crash. It's a rhythm as precise as the tide itself. In Chile, locals sometimes call it remolinera costera, the coastal twister, for its restless movements along the shore. It is common in some areas, but often overlooked, blending into the rocks it depends on. For birdwatchers, spotting one feels like discovering a secret inhabitant of the sea's edge. Culturally, it stands as a reminder of adaptability, how even the harshest landscapes find their caretakers. Its simple plumage hides a story of survival few others could match. Now let me ask you, have you ever stood at the ocean's edge, overwhelmed by its power, and wondered what life could possibly survive there? That's the seaside cinclodes. So the next time you walk Chile's rugged coast, don't just watch the waves, look closer at the rocks. You may find a small bird, humble in color, but extraordinary in spirit, thriving where the sea never rests. In the old-growth forests of southern Chile, silence hangs heavy beneath towering beeches and cypresses. Then, out of nowhere comes a sound, sharp, rhythmic, echoing like a drum across the trees. Tuck, 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 tuck. The forest has found its percussionist, the Magellanic woodpecker. This giant is the largest woodpecker in South America, nearly 18 inches tall. The males are unmistakable, jet black bodies set against a blazing crimson head that glows like fire in the shadows. Females, equally striking, wear a black crest swept elegantly back, giving them a regal profile. Together, they move through the forest with authority, climbing trunks in search of hidden prey. Here's a fun fact. Their beaks strike with incredible force, yet they suffer no damage. Like other woodpeckers, they have built-in shock absorbers, specialized skull structures that cushion every blow. With this, they pry into dead wood for beetle larvae, ants, and grubs, uncovering food no other bird can reach. They live in family groups, pairs often accompanied by young from previous years. Loyal and long-lived, they stay within territories of mature forest, returning to the same trees season after season. When a male drums, the sound can carry for miles, marking the forest as his own. For Chileans, the Magellanic woodpecker is a symbol of Patagonia's wild spirit, bold, resilient, and fiery. To encounter one is to feel the pulse of the forest itself. Birdwatchers often describe the experience as unforgettable. The flash of red against deep green, the resonant drumming rolling like thunder through the trees. But this giant is vulnerable. Logging and habitat loss shrink the ancient forest it depends on. Conservation efforts stress that without preserving old growth, the drumming of the Magellanic may one day fall silent. Now let me ask you, have you ever stood in a forest so quiet that a single sound, sharp, steady, insistent, felt like the heartbeat of the land? That's the Magellanic woodpecker. So the next time you picture Patagonia, imagine a crimson-headed sentinel, hammering life from the trunks of ancient trees. A bird too fierce and too strange to be ignored. On the windswept shores of southern Chile, where salt lagoons shimmer beneath a gray sky and the air tastes of sea and ice, a small, pale bird patrols the mudflats. Its steps are dainty, its form delicate, but its story is one of uniqueness beyond compare. The Magellanic plover. At first glance, it might seem like another sandpiper or plover. Its plumage is soft gray, blending perfectly with the shoreline, its eyes dark and alert. But scientists will tell you, it isn't quite either. The Magellanic plover is the only living member of its family, a taxonomic orphan standing alone on the tree of life. In other words, it is as distinct in evolution as flamingos or penguins. Here's a fun fact. Unlike most shorebirds that probe the mud, the Magellanic plover feeds by picking tiny snails and crustaceans from the surface, often using a curious pattering motion, tapping the ground with its feet to stir prey into movement. Watching this small gray bird shuffle across the shoreline is to see survival expressed as dance. Breeding pairs are devoted. They share duties of incubation, and both parents brood their chicks, sometimes even carrying the young under their wings for warmth in Patagonia's biting cold. For birdwatchers, finding a Magellanic plover is like striking gold. It lives only in a narrow range of southern Chile and Argentina, its habitat scattered and fragile. The bird's rarity and evolutionary uniqueness make it one of the most coveted sightings in South America. Culturally, its story reminds us that greatness isn't always loud or colorful. Sometimes it lies in quiet persistence, in being one of a kind. Yet its survival is not guaranteed. Habitat loss, human disturbance, and climate change threaten its already limited wetlands. Protecting it means protecting not just a bird, but a singular chapter in evolution's story. Now let me ask you, have you ever met someone who seemed ordinary at first, but the more you learned, the more you realized they were truly one of a kind? That's the Magellanic plover. So the next time you imagine Chile's southern lagoons, think of this quiet gray bird, the last of its line, enduring against the wind and time. On the windswept grasslands of southern Chile, where the horizon seems endless and the sky presses close, a small bird trots lightly across the open fields. The land may look empty, but this elegant creature belongs here, blending perfectly with the tawny shades of the earth, the tawny-throated dotterel. At first glance, it appears delicate, round body, long slender legs, and a neat, compact profile. Its plumage is a soft mix of buff and sandy brown across the throat and breast, contrasting with a darker back and wings. In sunlight, the warm tones glow like the golden grasses of Patagonia. Here's a fun fact. While most plovers live along shores and wetlands, the tawny-throated dotterel is a bird of high plains and grasslands. It forages quietly across open country, feeding on insects and seeds, often in small flocks that scatter quickly when disturbed. Its ground-dwelling habits and cryptic colors make it easy to overlook, yet once seen, its beauty is undeniable. In flight, a surprise awaits. Bold white wing patches flash against black flight feathers, turning the bird into a living signal against the sky. The sudden burst of contrast startles predators and delights watchers alike. For local communities, this bird is a marker of wild, open country. To see it running swiftly across the steppe is to know that the land remains untamed. Poets and travelers alike have compared its graceful movements to dancers crossing a natural stage. Yet like so many grassland birds, the tawny-throated dotterel faces threats. Overgrazing, agriculture, and habitat fragmentation reduce the open spaces it needs. Though not yet endangered, its populations are scattered, and each sighting feels precious. Now let me ask you, have you ever walked across a wide, open space and felt both freedom and fragility in the emptiness? That's the tawny-throated dotterel. So the next time you picture Chile's Patagonian plains, imagine this bird, slender, swift, and softly golden, living proof that beauty often hides in the quiet heart of the grasslands. Far off Chile's southern coast, where the Pacific roars and icy winds sweep across open seas, a great bird glides above the waves. Its wings stretch wide, nearly 8 feet tip to tip, holding steady against the gale. With barely a flap, it rides the endless wind. The black-browed albatross. Named for the bold dark line above its eyes, this seabird looks almost stern, as if frowning at the restless sea. Its plumage is elegant, snowy white head and body, contrasting black wings, and a pale bill tinged with yellow. Against the steel-gray ocean, it is both powerful and graceful. Here's a fun fact. Albatrosses are masters of dynamic soaring. By skillfully dipping and rising with the wind, they cover hundreds of miles a day without tiring. One black-browed albatross was recorded circumnavigating the Southern Ocean in just 46 days. Imagine a bird tracing the curve of the earth on borrowed wind. In Chile, these albatrosses breed on remote islands, nesting in colonies where their mud-cup nests stand like little towers. They mate for life, pairs reuniting year after year with ritualized dances. Bills clacking, heads swaying, wings spread in perfect synchrony. To witness this is to see love performed on a windswept stage. Culturally, sailors have long regarded albatrosses as omens. A bird following the ship was thought to carry the souls of lost sailors. Killing one was taboo, believed to bring misfortune on the voyage. In Chile's seafaring traditions, their presence still inspires awe and respect. Yet these giants face modern dangers. Long-line fishing, plastic pollution, and changing seas threaten their numbers. Conservationists now fight to keep their skies safe, knowing that if albatrosses vanish, the ocean will feel emptier. Now let me ask you, have you ever seen someone travel so far, so tirelessly, that they seemed born for the journey? That's the black-browed albatross. So the next time you imagine Chile's southern seas, look for a white bird carving endless circles over the waves, majestic, strange, and bound forever to the wind. On the still lakes and marshes of southern Chile, ripples spread across the water as a small, striking duck glides past. Its colors shine like a living mosaic, patches of white, green, and bronze shifting with every turn. The Chiloe Wigeon. This is no ordinary duck. Its head gleams with metallic green and purple, while a bold white crown runs across the top, almost like a cap of snow. The chest is rich chestnut, the flanks barred in black and white. On a calm lake, it looks like a painter's palette drifting effortlessly across the surface. Here's a fun fact. Unlike many ducks that dive or dabble, the Chiloe Wigeon grazes. It feeds mostly on grasses and aquatic plants, sometimes even leaving the water to nibble on pastures. In this way, it behaves almost like a goose in duck's clothing. Pairs form strong bonds, often raising their young in sheltered wetlands. The male is attentive, frequently staying close to the female and chicks, an uncommon trait among ducks, where many males take little part in parenting. To watch a family of Chiloe Wigeons moving together is to see partnership expressed in feathers. In Chile, this bird is both common and beloved. It inhabits freshwater habitats across the south, often mingling with other ducks, but always standing out thanks to its vivid plumage. For many locals, its presence is a symbol of healthy wetlands, a sign that the waters are alive. Culturally, its beauty has earned it a place in art and folklore. Hunters once prized it, but today conservationists stress its ecological value, urging protection of the marshes and lakes that sustain it. Now let me ask you, have you ever seen something familiar, a duck, a common bird, suddenly transformed by colors so bold it seemed unreal? That's the Chiloe Wigeon. So the next time you imagine Chile's southern lakes, picture this bright bird gliding across the water, a living jewel among reeds and reflections. In the wetlands of central Chile, where reeds sway in the breeze and dragonflies skim the surface, a faint rhythmic sound drifts through the air. Tick, tick, tick. At first you might think it's an insect or perhaps a dripping pipe, but listen more closely and you'll see the reeds quiver as a tiny flash of yellow hops into view. The ticking Doradito. Barely larger than a sparrow, this bird is a spark of color in the marsh. Its body glows lemon yellow, set off by olive wings and a slender bill. Perched on reeds, it flicks its tail nervously, always in motion. Yet it is the sound, not the sight, that makes it unforgettable. Its call is a rapid, mechanical ticking, like a clock wound too tightly. Once you hear it, you can never mistake it for anything else. Here's a fun fact. The ticking Doradito belongs to a family of small flycatchers, but unlike many relatives that hunt in open air, it stays hidden deep in reed beds. Its diet is mostly tiny insects it gleans from leaves and stalks. Because it hides so well, birdwatchers often identify it by sound long before they glimpse the bird itself. In Chile, it is considered rare and local. Finding one requires patience, standing quietly by the marsh, ears tuned to that ticking rhythm. For many birders, the thrill of discovery lies not just in the sight, but in recognizing the sound, a heartbeat of the wetland. Culturally, birds like the Doradito remind us of small wonders. They're not showy or mighty, yet their presence transforms a landscape. A silent marsh becomes alive once the ticking begins. Now let me ask you, have you ever been in a quiet place where one small, steady sound changed the way you felt about the whole scene? That's the ticking Doradito. So the next time you explore Chile's reed beds, pause and listen. That ticking in the air may not be a clock. It may be a golden bird, keeping time in nature's hidden orchestra. Far out in the Pacific, nearly 400 miles off Chile's coast, lies the remote Juan Fernández archipelago, misty islands of cliffs and forest, once home to castaways, and now to one of the rarest hummingbirds on Earth, the Juan Fernández Firecrown. Unlike most hummingbirds, which are tiny and delicate, this species is unusually large, nearly 5 inches long, giving it a commanding presence for its kind. Males are dazzling. Their feathers burn in shades of fiery orange-red, glowing like embers in the sunlight. When they hover, they seem less like birds and more like sparks torn from a flame. Females, in contrast, are green and white, with blue crowns, so different that for years people thought they were another species entirely. Here's a fun fact. Firecrowns are fiercely territorial. Males defend patches of forest with aggressive dives and loud buzzy calls. Despite their small size, they will chase away other hummingbirds, larger birds, and even humans who venture too close to their feeding grounds. But beauty and fierceness cannot shield them from fragility. Today, the Juan Fernández Firecrown is critically endangered, with only a few hundred left. Habitat loss, invasive species, and limited range have pushed it to the brink. Conservationists are fighting to restore native forests and protect the last strongholds of this glowing jewel. For Chileans, the Firecrown is a symbol of both pride and warning, a reminder that even the most radiant creatures can vanish if not guarded. To see one in the wild is a privilege few ever experience, a glimpse of nature's brilliance balanced on the edge of survival. Now let me ask you, have you ever seen something so bright, so fiery, that it felt alive with energy, and yet knew it was fragile as a candle in the wind? That's the Juan Fernández Firecrown. So the next time you think of Chile, remember not just the Andes or the coasts, but a hidden island where a flame still beats its wings, rare, radiant, and almost too strange to believe. In the temperate forests of southern Chile, the air is filled with chatter and commotion. Flocks of green parakeets sweep across the sky, wheeling in noisy unison before diving into groves of native trees. Look closely, and you'll notice something unusual about their faces. Their beaks are longer, thinner, and more curved than any parakeet you've seen before. The Slender-billed Parakeet. At first glance, its body looks familiar. Bright green plumage, flashes of red beneath the wings, and a lively, restless energy. But that peculiar beak sets it apart. Long and narrow, it is perfectly designed for prying seeds from the cones of native monkey puzzle trees, Araucaria, and splitting tough fruits others cannot touch. It is a tool of precision, honed by evolution for a specialized diet. Here's a fun fact. These parakeets often gather in huge flocks, sometimes numbering in the hundreds. Their noisy calls echo through valleys, a rolling chorus that farmers both love and dread. While they help disperse seeds and keep forests alive, they are also notorious crop raiders, descending on fields of grain or orchards in waves that can strip a harvest bare. In Chile, they are known as tricahues and are deeply woven into local identity. Children recognize their raucous cries, and communities in the South still see them as both nuisance and neighbor. A reminder that nature's abundance is not always gentle, yet despite their numbers, they are vulnerable. Habitat loss and persecution have reduced their range. Conservationists now stress the importance of preserving native forests, both for the trees and for the parakeets that depend on them. For birdwatchers, seeing a slender-billed parakeet is unforgettable, not only for its odd beak, but for the sheer energy of a flock sweeping across the sky like a living green storm. Now let me ask you, have you ever witnessed a crowd so lively, so overwhelming, that you couldn't help but stop and stare? That's the slender-billed parakeet. So as we close our journey through Chile's strange birds, picture this: a raucous flock of green parakeets, beaks flashing, voices rising, carrying the wild heart of Chile's forests into the future. From the high Andes where the Andean Condor rides the winds, to the remote islands where the fiery Juan Fernández Firecrown still flickers, from the rocky coasts ruled by the moustached Inca Tern, to the noisy flocks of slender-billed parakeets in southern forests, Chile has revealed a bird life as strange as it is magnificent. 15 species, 15 stories. Some, like the Magellanic woodpecker or Chilean mockingbird, live close to daily life, their voices echoing in forests and fields. Others, like the Diademed Sandpiper-Plover or Magellanic plover, are hidden jewels of the highlands and lagoons, so rare they feel like secrets whispered by the land. And then there are the unmistakable oddities. The moustached Turca, the seaside cinclodes, the ticking Doradito, birds so peculiar they almost seem invented. Together they tell us something essential about Chile. This is a land of extremes, deserts, glaciers, cliffs, and seas, and its birds reflect that wild diversity. To know them is to glimpse the resilience, the humor, and the brilliance of nature itself. Now let me ask you, after meeting these 15 strange species, which one will stay with you? The condor's vast wings, the firecrown's flame, or the parakeet's noisy flocks? Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep watching the skies, because the world is still full of wonders you won't believe exist.